Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Let me introduce myself. I'm Evelyn Stark. I work at the Center for Financial Inclusion. I'm here with the rest of the team to walk through this deck and answer your questions. So let me just quickly introduce the team. Chantel Macy is the IF50 project manager. She'll be answering most of the questions today for everybody. Ezra Mannix, our communications team rep, he's going to help us manage your questions. Eddie Bartholari, who's actually our longest serving IF50 team member. He's also going to be available to answer technical questions as well. This is recorded. It will go up onto the site shortly. So feel free to let your colleagues know about it in case they miss the live session. And starting from now, please feel free to ask questions in the chat. Do so throughout this discussion. If it's a very specific question about your application that you're in the midst of, we might not answer you in this session, but we can email you back. You can also ask that question by emailing info@inclusivefintech50.com, info@inclusivefintech50 as 50.com. We have people in different time zones following that email, and so you should be able to get responses around the clock. So great. Let's talk about what is IF50. It's a global innovation competition. It aims to identify and elevate emerging fintechs that have the potential to drive financial inclusion for unserved and underserved customers. All of our applicants are solving problems for these customers, overcoming limitations in current service offerings or innovating in new ways. Last year, we received over 300 eligible applications from more than 105 countries, all continents except Antarctica, I believe, and subregions were represented, with the largest share coming from sub-Saharan Africa. 82% of our applicants had been operating for less than 5 years. 84% of them were at seed or angel stage. I would say that eligibility, or would remind folks that eligibility is up to Series B. Reviewing public records, we looked at past winners, and collectively our past winners have increased their funding by $620 million in the year following their win. So for example, a 2019 cohort, we only looked at the funding that they received in 2020. So it's nice. Every year the competition has a theme. The past 2 years, unsurprisingly, were focused on the effects of COVID-19, how businesses were coping, what strategies they were pursuing to increase resilience. And as all of you are very, very well aware, the challenges presented by COVID required business to increasingly digitize and digitalize their products and service offerings in order to continue to reach existing and prospective customers. So unsurprisingly, this year's theme is making digitalization count. We are interested in hearing from all of you how fintechs have been leveraging increased data and digital infrastructure, how you've invested to make products more inclusive and impactful for customers. So I would be remiss without reminding and mentioning our IF50 sponsors. IF50 would not be possible without the generous support of our sponsors and supporters. Our sponsors are Visa, MetLife Foundation, and Jersey Overseas Aid and Comic Relief. Axion and IFC provide valuable in-kind support as IF50 partners. So what sets IF50 apart? Of course, there are other startup competitions, and IF50 has a unique role given its focus on both fintech and financial inclusion. So we're really looking for companies that place strong emphasis on both their business model and on inclusivity. We have a very prominent and growing investors network, some of who are engaged in reviewing our companies through IF50's judging panel, and others who review the winners, offer advice, or request additional information from enterprises in their areas of focus, whether it's topical or geographical. The judging panel itself represents a broad swath of experience from investors, leaders in finance, financial inclusion, startup ecosystems, different regions, different markets, all of them with a focus on inclusivity. Once our winners are selected, they are announced at CFI's Financial Inclusion Week. This is a still virtual event. The benefit of virtual is, of course, that it gets a lot of viewership. So more than 1,600 people participated in Financial Inclusion Week events last year. and then could also see it throughout the year, and even more people are expected this year. Winning company profiles stay on the IF50 website throughout the year and future years. They're highlighted in blogs, invited to share their work in webinars or research, and they're visible in our annual insights report that compiles the findings of the applications we've received. So in the investors network, as you can see here, we have a large number of IF50 investors, and more of them can also be seen on the Catalyst Fund site because their investor network works with ours. And even more investors are joining the network, and their logos will be added shortly. In terms of eligibility, who should apply? Fintechs that are Series B or earlier with offerings in credit, savings, insurance, payments, or infrastructure. Your solution can be B2B, B2C, B2B2C. Companies need to be beyond the ideal stage and have at least one active customer. So why fintechs should apply? Global visibility. IF50 is in its 4th year. It's a brand that investors and other actors in fintech and financial inclusion recognize and respect. IF50 also partners with prominent media organizations to promote the winners and the insights report globally. Our supporters and sponsors provide various opportunities for capacity building for IF50 winners, or for providing capacity building actually for some of their customers. So very practically, Visa, for example, provides access to their practical money skills and practical business skills training programs at no cost. Of course, we know that IF50 increases exposure to investors. Applicants can opt in to share data, and winners will receive an invitation to hear investment readiness tips from our investors network. Of course, there's the ability to network just amongst yourselves with other IF50 stakeholders, prior year winners, judges, sponsors, and partners. In fact, this would be a great time to hear from a past winner. Ana Castellum, head of impact at Bancaya, shared with us a bit about their experience, both with the application process and with the benefits of winning IF50. So I'm going to let Ana take it away from here. Thank you.
I'm Ana Castellum. I'm the head of impact here at Bancaya. Essentially, what we aim to do is empower everyone with the financial and digital freedom to break through barriers and achieve more. So what does that mean in our day-to-day? Well, we try to offer a product suite that enables our customers to do everything from start their first savings account, to make payments without any commissions, to access loans for durable goods, and even earn cashback rewards just by purchasing with our debit card, really targeting underserved segments. So people who are either underbanked or unbanked in Mexico. That's how we serve our clients. We know that most of the time they are not trusting financial institutions. So it's key for us to reach them through an offline acquisition channel, to interact with them, guide them every step of the way, and really build that trust with them. So we've partnered with a major retailer called Chedraui in Mexico, and this has allowed us to do this, and also has proven to be a really key competitive advantage because our customer acquisition costs are way lower than through digital channels. And we have been able to reach even more underserved communities than if you try to target them through Facebook ads or this type of thing. More than half of our clients are women, and almost 70% of our clients have never had access to credit before. We also know that they're below the national income average as a majority. So yes, we do have proof that we are reaching this type of historically forgotten profiles or excluded profiles. Well, it was definitely a learning process. It really enabled us to identify some gaps because we already had a lot of the information requested, but perhaps it was stored in different departments along Bancaya. So it was great because it allowed us to identify this and put it all together and see sort of the big picture. And even after IF50, it has improved our communication and processes amongst our team. So in that sense, it was a great process for learning. And even, as I said, even after IF50, my recommendation would be for all applicants to first list all the requirements that are needed for the applications in one document. So you have complete visibility of what you'll be needing and whom you'll be needing support from within your team. Secondly, I would say to assign a point person to really coordinate all these efforts throughout the application and gather all the information and keep on track to meet the deadlines. And lastly, I'd say a collaborative document, whether on the Drive or however whatever tool you use, is useful because you can assign specific tasks to different team members and it's not all the burden in one person. Plus, you can provide feedback on what your other colleagues have already shared, no? So your application is stronger. So I'd say that's what worked for us and the things that we learned throughout the process. First, I'd say the exposure and the prestige of IF50 is really powerful because to the eyes of external stakeholders, we gained credibility in our impact. So it's not just us saying we are doing financial inclusion or doing things around financial well-being, but established third party is already validating that. So that has been great in that sense. And it also for attracting young talent, it makes Bancaya an even more exciting place to work at. So first, that was very valuable for us. And the network that you are able to tap into is incredible. After IF50, we partnered with BFA and with CGAP. So we're currently on collaborative projects to measure more accurately the financial health of our clients and to build a more inclusive risk model for our credit offerings. So that's been great. And in general, just to meet thought partners that challenge us every day in how we can deliver even more value to our customers and truly improve their financial lives. No? So I think in terms of network exposure and credibility in terms of impact, it's been a great opportunity.
Thank you so much to Anna. So I'm going to pass this over to Chantel Macy now. She's going to explain this application section that you can see on your screen and then get to some of the questions. And just to remind everybody that there is a Q&A and a chat, so please feel free to ask questions there.
Thanks, Evelyn. So here is just a run through of each of the application sections. I think the important thing for everyone to note here is that the innovation, inclusivity, traction, and scale potential sections are all equally weighted. The product information section is set up so that you can describe to us what your solution is all about. And the green inclusive finance section has no bearing on the scoring, but will be used for analysis and research. You can find more information about the composition of the application in the FAQ section of our website. And you can also download all of the questions in English, French, and Spanish to help you prepare and delegate sections to your teams. So on the next slide, we talk about the supporting documentation that's required in the application. And again, a more comprehensive list of this is listed in the FAQ section of our website. As Anna suggests in her testimonial, reading through what will be required so that you can delegate and coordinate among different colleagues could help you streamline your application process and complete it more quickly. But most of this stuff is things that you will already have prepared. So consolidated financial statements, information about your business model, and your commitment to inclusivity. So with that, we just want to remind everyone of the key dates for the competition. So the period is closing on July 25th. So you have about a week and a half to review everything, or if you've already started an application, to complete it. The judging period will take place in August and September, and the winners will be announced during Financial Inclusion Week, as Evelyn mentioned. Following that, we'll be disseminating information about the winners as well as insights from the application. So with that, I would love to start looking at some questions.
Hey all, so we have a question from Sabia who asks, will my company details be kept confidential?
Thank you. Yeah, that's an important question. So you will have the opportunity to opt in to share your application data with our Investors Network members. If you choose to opt in, your data will not be shared beyond this group. And if you do not opt in, it will not have any bearing on the judging process. That said, even when you do opt in, it's really aggregate data that's shared with our Investors Network. So we're not sharing any sensitive information about your company. Another thing is that if there is any specific interest from one of our Investors Network members in a specific company, then we would also reach out to that company to make sure that they're comfortable with an introduction before we make any connections.
We also have a question from Mauli Corsi who asks, does every application get reviewed?
Yes, so every application is reviewed by our scoring analysts. Once it's eligible, the scoring analysts shortlist the top 100 that are then reviewed by the expert judging panel that you see listed on the Inclusive FinTech 50 website.
And we have, let's see here, Joshua King asks, can past applicants who didn't make it reapply?
Yeah, actually, there's a streamlined process for past applicants whereby if you use the same login, you'll see that the data that you had uploaded in prior years is still there for you pre-populated. So that should also make your application process smoother.
And the questions are rolling in. We have Nardine who asks, any specific requirements after submission of the application?
No, so once your application is complete, it will just tell you that it's been submitted successfully. And then, unfortunately, the only requirement is patience as we go through the scoring process and judging process in advance of Financial Inclusion Week.
Let's see, Kefa, can you share this recording via email?
We'll actually be posting a recording on our website, and yes, we can email all registered attendees with that link as well.
All right, Edward Akani, what if a startup is pre-revenue?
Yes, so you can be pre-revenue as long as you have an active customer. So there are certain cases where services are provided as freemium. So yes, it is possible is the short answer.
And Morgan, thank you for your question. How many applicants do you usually get or expect to get?
Last year, we had 283 eligible applicants. So we would expect this year to be within the same range. So I'd say a few hundred ballpark.
And Fantamadi Sila, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, asks, is it possible to apply with an MVP without possible? I think what do you mean is without a minimum viable product, is it possible to apply, yes?
I think we would require a minimum viable product. What we suggest to everyone is to use their flagship product. So the product in their suite that is projected to have the highest number of users. So if it's something that's still testing and pre-user, then unfortunately you wouldn't be eligible.
And Nardine asks, who selects the winners? This is a great question. Who selects the winners of IF50?
So again, the winners are selected by our expert judging panel. So maybe if one of our team members can just put that link to the judging panel in the chat for your reference, then that would be great. So yeah, the judging panel is represented by fintech associations, investors, other startup community members, and from different regions globally.
We just have just a bevy of questions. I'm just scrolling up here.
Sure.
And let's see, roughly how long does it take to fill out the application? That's a good question.
Yep. So it takes from the feedback that we've received probably a few hours to fill out the application, but that can be done in multiple sessions. So you don't have to do that in one sitting. You're able to log in as many times as you like. And you can also delegate sections to other members of your team so that you can work on it in parallel.
And the questions are in English only, correct? But you can actually, there's Spanish and French versions of the questions that you can preview before you do the application. And those are the Spanish and French versions of the FAQs. The links to those are found in the inclusivefintech50.com/FAQ.
Yep. So both. You can complete the application in one of those 3 languages of your preference, and you'll see that on the portal. And we've also made sure that all of the questions are translated and ready to be downloaded from our website for your advanced preparation.
Great, you can apply in all those languages. Let's see, what we have an idea. Arvin Guno asks, we have an idea that we are developing, which is not necessarily our core business or main business activity at the moment, but rather an extension. Is such an application eligible?
Yes, it in theory could be, but again, we just want to make sure that it's far enough along at this stage, and that you are planning to make this a flagship product within your business. But I wouldn't say that should exclude you.
All right, and Asmelash asks, is the quality of the digital technology platform or the impact much important?
The quality of the platform should speak to the client that you're trying to reach. So, for example, if it's on a smartphone and you're trying to reach rural clients, that might not be as appropriate as a USSD. Similarly for 2G through 5G networks, it should be based on what's appropriate in your country or region of operation, as well as for the target customers. So I hope that answers the question.
Anayoshuku asks, can you please throw more light on the selection process? What's the merit for selection?
Sure. Yeah. So as I mentioned, the 4 sections are inclusivity, innovation, scale, and traction. So for inclusivity, we are using the AAA framework from BFA's Catalyst Network. So we're asking questions around affordability, accessibility, and why is my mind blanking? Evelyn, feel free to chime in there. Appropriateness, thank you. And so for those, we'll have questions related to each where you're able to explain how you're meeting those criteria. For innovation, we're really looking at delivery channels, revenue models, and how you receive payments to learn more about your innovation. For scale potential, we're looking at the composition of your management team, and for traction, from more information on funding you've received to date, if you've participated in pilots or accelerators. So those are the types of questions that you'll see again in the FAQs. And those are all equally weighted. Our expert judges will review each of those 4 categories.
The questions, we're just getting bombarded. I love it. It's Maximilian asks, it seems most of the judges are from outside of North America. Is there a preference for projects that are not from developed markets?
No, I'd say last year, in terms of geographic composition, the bulk of applications came from sub-Saharan Africa. So I think about 36%, and then the rest were fairly evenly distributed globally. We did have some slightly lower representation in MENA, which we are hoping to increase this year. But this is global competition. Global competition. So we've had winners from North America, from Europe, from many developed markets as well.
All right, and our other panelists are also can chime in as well. Chantel's been on the hot seat, but Julian asks, hi Chantel, are non-FSP eligible, for example, infrastructure startup laying the rails to digitize the operations of FSP?
Yes, absolutely. Again, there is a, at the very beginning product information section, it will ask you in what category your product falls, and infrastructure is an option that you can select there. And then it will ask you more about, the B2B, et cetera, and what subcategories. But we recognize that infrastructure is a very important product category for financial inclusion and fintech more broadly.
Great. We have a question in French here. I'm not even going to attempt to read it because I don't speak or read French, but what should we do for language, for questions in French or Spanish that anybody might have?
I mean, if you want to put the French ones in the chat for me, I can read them and respond in English. Unfortunately, I don't think we have any Spanish speakers on the line right now.
Okay.
One of the French questions, and it's also in English from a couple of other people, are what are the predominant criteria regarding the selection? And that came up a few times. How do we give points, so to speak?
Yeah, so there's not much more that I can say on that apart from the 4 categories that I mentioned. But again, if you want to refer to the FAQs with all of the questions that you can download and have any additional follow-ups once those are reviewed, I'd be very happy to respond via email.
Great. Julius asks, was there something a previously promising startup missed which resulted in its disqualification? Any red flags, pitfalls to avoid?
Maybe that's a question for Eddie, given his experience in previous cycles, but I would say, if anything, just on the eligibility side, sometimes if you don't meet the criteria, it will boot you out, and we can follow up with you to make sure that you're answering those sections correctly. Yeah, Eddie, any guidance there?
Oh, we seem to have maybe a connectivity problem there.
Yeah, we can move to the next question and come back to Eddie.
Joshua asked, we might have a couple of products that qualify for this competition. Can we apply with both? I think we touched a little bit on this earlier, but maybe you could reiterate policy on that.
Yeah, so you should only submit one application for, I'd say, your most inclusive or largest scale product.
Any tips on how to make your application stand out?
Yeah, I think that keeping things as clear and concise as possible is the way. We don't expect any, overly produced marketing materials or anything like that. We really just want you to use your energy to answer the questions that are posed of you without putting a lot of effort into additional downloads or anything like that. So I would say we also are aware that many applicants are applying not in their native language. So although we're trying to be inclusive by having English, French, and Spanish, we recognize that that could be a challenge in communications for people. And so just wanted to make sure that everyone knows that won't mean that we score you any differently.
Great. And what are some achievements previous winners have achieved in the last 2 to 4 years after being a winner?
Yeah, so I mean, we touched on the funding increases. So that, of course, is something that a lot of early stage fintechs are looking to achieve. In addition to that, partnerships with Visa, one of our sponsors, as well as some of our Investors Network members, that may be non-monetary in nature. So trainings, other in-kind support are benefits of the competition. And then I would say just general promotion, given the logos and profiles that appear on the IF50 website. Anna did touch on one that I hadn't thought of previously, which I found really interesting from Bancaya's perspective, which was that because they had won this competition, to prospective employees, they seemed more attractive and like a more interesting place to work, given that they're very mission-based. So I think that's another nice market signal for your internal operations as well, and employee attraction and retention.
Great. Is there space to upload additional data to substantiate the application?
Yes, so at different points within the application process, it will give you the option to upload additional data or presentations. So again, we don't expect a large amount of marketing materials to be uploaded here, and that's really at your discretion as well. Our scoring analysts will be doing as much as they can to independently validate information that's there as well through your websites or app stores, etc. So the short answer is yes.
Thank you. And we have some questions here in the Q&A tab that perhaps I didn't get to. Let's take a look real quick into some of those. See if I can pick some out here. So Viresh Prashar, you ask, are only direct fintech solutions considered, or will solutions product that collect data or providing underlying information that can enable better access to capital for underserved communities also be considered?
Yes, that would be considered. So I think that would be considered like a B2B or B2B2C solution, depending on the way that you're packaging that. But yes, certainly that would be within the scope of this competition.
And we touched on this a little bit, I believe, in the presentation itself, but can we know how different criterias are weighed? Yannick Zagabi asks.
Yep. So 25% for each of the 4 sections that I mentioned: innovation, inclusivity, scale potential, and traction.
Amos asked, can the program consider Village Savings and Loan Association? Suppose if they're digital fintechs, they might be.
Yeah. So if your BSLA is tech enabled, then that could certainly fall within this competition as well.
And Shanglin also asked a B2B versus B2C question. I think your question got answered, but please let us know. If it didn't, the person asks, would B2B solutions aimed at MFIs be disadvantaged, since most examples seem to be B2C?
Well, actually, in the most recent competition, we did see more and more B2B solutions coming in. So I think that's a trend that will continue this year. We'd expect more, or the balance to continue to push towards more B2B.
Size limitations. Any limitations on company size, assets, and customers?
No, I mean, if you are huge and have experienced exponential growth in the past couple of years, then that's great. I think the only limitation is just on what series of funding that you're at. So we do look for Series B or earlier. So just keep that in mind as well.
And here's a question that's sort of close to the heart of Center for Financial Inclusion, being actively involved in consumer protection over the years. Please, Patrick asks, please, what applications about client protection systems? It seems it is considered, but that it is part of financial inclusion.
Okay, so I think the question is, how are those considered in the scoring? Is that what, I'm sorry, I can't read the.
Sure.
I think it's around the infrastructure side of things. That's how I read it.
Meaning they're applying with that type of product. Got it. Okay. Yeah. So if that type of product is within the infrastructure category, then that's something that we would definitely consider as well. I think where my brain was going is that we do have within that application a few questions that relate to consumer privacy. And those are both in innovation and inclusivity. And some are used for our analysis and research, and others for scoring.
All right. Yeah, let's jump ahead here to some question. Here's one from Angela who says, thank you so much for this session. You are welcome, Angela, absolutely. Would it still be possible for a company to apply, number one, for the competition, even if they've previously received funding from institutional investors led by Quona? Two, we are currently undergoing beta for our platform, meaning we have no clients, but rather those who signed up for beta would be accepted to apply.
Yeah, so that's a tricky one. Okay, so on part one, you would not be excluded from consideration if you have Quona or any of the other investors network members as investees. You'll see on our website that we have some Investors Network members who are also judges, and we do ask that if there's any relationship between applicants and judges, that they recuse themselves. So that's also just FYI for fairness. On part two, that's a little bit tricky. I think for you have to be post beta to be considered. So we do, we do want active customers in a live environment.
And something, this might be a good question for you, Eddie. It's about in the financial section details of the page had a mandatory section for uploading 2020 audited results. Does this mean we are not eligible if we launched this year? Or Chantal?
Well, you can still apply as long as those are aggregated data that you share with your, I'm gonna say, top level data that you share internally with your shareholders. That's fine. Aggregated data, we don't need granular data.
Let's see here. Can the program fit for Uganda? Absolutely. All geographies are welcome to apply. Let's see here. Here's another, if your app is sort of a similar beta question, if your app is still in the testing phase with active testers, are you eligible?
No, unfortunately, yeah, it would need to be post testing for a live solution.
Okay, and Monique asks, is an education-based consumer engagement and onboarding solution within the scope?
Education-based consumer engagement and onboarding solution. So I don't see in your description an explicit link to the financial component, but if there is something in there, then yes, there would have to be some financial solution embedded. If it's just purely education and training, then perhaps not.
See, Frederick in the Q&A asks, what is considered a client? Is income generation required?
The short answer is no, not necessarily, but we would need to learn more about where your income is being generated or how you're getting revenue. But yeah, you could be serving directly an individual without them being the one who pays for the product.
All right. And Another question about agriculture and VSLA. Please, will you consider my application? Let's see. What else? So another question about, is a venture less than 1 year eligible?
Yes.
Absolutely.
And I saw a question about audited financials. So I think that kind of speaks to the same idea. Know your financials do not have to be professionally, independently, externally audited.
Is your program considered hardware agnostic products? Kenneth asks. So POS, for example, point of sale.
So I'd need to know a little bit more about that. There are several solutions that we've looked at in the past that have POS as part of it, but there would need to be kind of more behind that in addition to the hardware. A standalone hardware product wouldn't be considered.
Can I apply if my solution targets the general populace and not only the underserved?
Yes. So again, there are many scenarios where multiple members of the general populace or a large portion could be considered underserved by traditional financial inclusion metrics. So you don't have to necessarily be targeting the bottom of the pyramid, so to speak. You could be having a solution that's distributed more broadly than that, and that shouldn't be an issue.
Great. And do you see, so we have a couple questions. One person asks, can you highlight the eligibility criteria once more? We can, if we don't want to go back to the slide now, we can probably just put in chat here the link to the eligibility criteria on our website. Happy to do that now.
Great.
And can you define underserved from your perspective? Arvin asks. That's a good question. What is an underserved person?
Sure. Evelyn, do you want to chime in here?
Sure. So it could be market specific. You would need to have data or information that identifies why in your market this client is not being served by others. So it would be specific to the market.
And I would also just add within the application itself on the portal, when there are key terms like that, there's a definition that's included in the application itself. You'll also see those definitions in the questions that you can download from our website. So we have underserved, affordability, accessibility, appropriateness, and several other key terms that are available directly in the portal.
Excellent. Kenneth asks, what of a product that involved both payments and logistics?
That sounds great. Yeah.
Let me check the Q&A again. I'm a little bit quiet since about 10.
Ezra, while you're looking at that, there's another question about, do you see past winners reapplying? And the answer on that one is definitely yes, we see past winners reapplying. And on top of that, your data is stored. So you don't have to recomplete when you reapply. You can update at that point.
Not seeing any more questions in the Q&A tab. Is there any, please, last call for questions in the chat now. If there's any other ones you want to pop in there, please feel free to do so now. Otherwise, always please feel free to email us as well at info@inclusivefintech50.com. I'll put that email address again in the chat. and we are available 24 hours a day, almost in multiple time zones. We can answer questions in French and Spanish as well. Let's see. Thank you, panelists. You're welcome. Can provision of digital tools consider in the app in the competition that improve inclusion? The provision of digital tools consider in the app competition.
Yes, again, I think that is a little bit vague, but in general, it sounds like it's within the scope.
How many winners a year and how much by winner? Not sure what how much by winner means. We have 50 winners per year. So this is the 4th year of the competition. And so we have 150 past winners, which you can also view on our winners gallery at our website. And just go to the inclusivity50.com and go to the winners tab, and you can see the list of winners by year, and it gives you an overview of what they do, what their business model is, and the types of target customers they serve.
Great. Okay, well, I mean, I think that, again, just to remind everyone of the timelines, the application is open and ready for you to upload information, and that will remain open until July 25th. So, you know, a full 10 days or so for you to make amendments to applications you've already started. And again, as Evelyn's mentioned and has put in the chat, we are available via the info@inclusivefintech50.com email address with any additional clarifying questions. And I would encourage you to just peruse the FAQ section of our website. And if there are specific questions that you have related to what you see there, we'd be happy to follow up.
Just one more question. Yeah, as she said, the application questions are available online. So please feel free to review those in advance in English, French, or Spanish.
Wonderful. This has been great. This is a very lively group of people asking questions. The video will be online. You'll find a lot more FAQs and the info session. So we look forward to hearing more from all of you and to seeing your applications. Thank you. Good luck.
Thank you. Good luck.
Thank you.